Hello there, and welcome to a sunny South Wales in Great Britain. And it's just gone 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm starting to do some artwork after having breakfast, after going back to sleep, after having my weekly organic food delivery and putting it away. Yeah, it's one of those days. So I'm just settling down to get this week's colouring template done for tomorrow for the Angela Porter's Colouring Book Fans Facebook group. But I'm going to film it. I'm going to do a bit of chat perhaps, and then the rest of it will be time lapse. So here we go. As always, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. I never do. I never have any kinds of preconceptions at all of what I'm going to draw often. I start with simple-ish motif or something that appeals to me. And I just let things grow organically. In this case, organically being an apt description, because I think today there's going to be quite a lot of botanicals appearing in whatever it is that I choose to draw. And I will be honest, this is my second attempt, because whatever I was doing in the first one, I was just thinking, oh, this just is not going to be, this is not what I want it to be, or this is not working out in an acceptable way. And that does happen sometimes. Sometimes things, I make a false start, as it were, and get myself in a right kerfuffle about whatever it is that I am trying to achieve. Not that I've got any not trying to achieve as in a prefixed or a planned way, but just that kind of desire to have something that appeals to me as well as perhaps to other people. And when something doesn't really work out the way I'd like it to, I'm not averse to saying, right, let's try again. Let's have a look at this. What is it you don't like? And what can you do about it? And I didn't like what I was doing. I thought it might be a good idea, but it just didn't feel right. As I've said, I rarely sit down with any preconceived idea of what I want a template to look like. I do work very intuitively and very instinctively. And just see what happens. And sometimes things just don't go as planned. I have to say, not very often. But there are times when I also think that when I'm starting to draw, or I get so far through a drawing that, oh, what am I doing? This isn't working. What are we going to do with this today? But I push through with those ones and come through to the other side and go, I'm glad I did. This one, I just know that it's not going to work. This is an interesting start, but I'm all for interesting. It's not an issue or a problem for me, really. Just concentrating here a moment. So yeah, so yesterday was a funny old day. I really didn't have a lot of energy of any kind at all yesterday, and I was back in bed mid-morning, extremely tired, signs of a headache beginning, one of them migraine type ones that I get, and trying to sleep it off, and it wasn't all that successful because I had a knock at the door, and it was this person who comes from time to time who did some garden work years ago. I'm in the area, can I do something for you? And I've worked out they overcharge me, but yesterday he actually offered to trim a hedge for an actual reasonable price, so perhaps people have been saying he's overcharging, which is nice if that's the case. So I agreed, let them do the hedge, and I went back to bed, which was daft because the noise was ridiculous. But I really didn't want to be hanging around chatting to them either, because I just wasn't in the mood for that kind. So I made my excuses. They do a good enough job, so, and I had to trust them to do it, so I thought I'd go back to bed while there. But the machinery they were using was so blimming noisy. But at least the hedge is trimmed, so that will look quite nice for a while. And tidy anyway, if not nice. But I just couldn't get back to sleep. But I think saying that, I think again. But although I may not have got off to sleep much, I think I did have a bit of a nap for a short while. It refreshed me enough to do what I needed to do in the afternoon. I had a meeting to go to, and but after that I was back in bed before getting up to get myself sorted for something in the evening as well. Kid you not, it's but of course I had hoped, as I mentioned in yesterday's vlog, to get about 3 sketches for the Whimsical Kittens book done, 3 or so, because that's doable usually in a day, to try to get all 31 done by today. And off for approval, so I've just got the inking in then left to do, and perhaps get some inked in as well, but it just wasn't going to happen. I was just tired, so tired, and my head just wouldn't work properly, and I know when not to do something or try to push myself like this. And yesterday was one of those days where it was not a day to push myself, I do have to say that. I've gone home because I've gone round this outside in a different way, but it'd be fine. In nature, nothing is identical. Flowers may look identical, but when you look at them close up, there's differences in them. It's the same with seed pods and everything else, so I am going to pop a cheeky one. Just a little one, I think, up here. I then have a nice odd number of these. And that one's a much more exaggerated kind of lobes down there, isn't it, than the others, but that's okay. It's a bit of a wobbly line, but you know, it'll be fine. So unfortunately yesterday was not exactly what I'd hoped for, but again, it was what it was, and I and it was a day where I really did have to be, I suppose, kind to myself and look after myself. So even though I hadn't had much sleep because I didn't get to bed until really late last night because what I was involved in went on a bit, and I usually like to try to get into bed earlier on a Tuesday night because I know I'm going to be up really early on a Wednesday for organic food delivery. That didn't happen, but I actually feel okay. I think it's because I did go back to bed eventually after I got the delivery in and popped everything away, and had a cup of tea and did a bit of drawing with ballpoint pens, coloured ballpoint pens, yeah. Always a good plan to try something different, possibly. Actually, it's quite interesting. It's not something I've ever really done. But it's always nice to play with different media. Even if I find out that I don't like it or there's no purpose, it's something I've tried and I learn from it. So yeah, anyway, so I did manage to nod off for a bit, so that seemed to recharge me just that little bit, so that I am going to be okay for most of the day. And even though it's lovely and sunny and dry out, sadly I won't be going out for a walk because that fall I took on the weekend where I twisted my foot over and bashed my knee and got some wounds in my knee. The knee's fine, it doesn't hurt or anything, it's just scabby. But my foot is still pretty sore. It's better than it was, but it's still not comfortable to walk on, and I don't want to run the risk of slowing the healing by going too fast. And I'm also meeting up with a friend tomorrow in the day. Somebody I haven't seen in person since August last year. Because, well, that C word, COVID. And we've sort of like both think it'd be nice to catch up. So we're both going to drive and meet up somewhere in our own cars. And I think we've sort of like agreed a plan that we'd both. We're talking about because it's my friends who I go on cake runs. My friend Liz, our cake runs, which is code for let's have a day out and see where we go. They just haven't happened for over a year in the form that we are used to them. And so we were saying about how much we missed chats over cake and scones. And I said, I'm still nervous. I really don't want to eat indoors or be anywhere where there's lots of people because I'm still got a lot of anxiety. not just, you know, with COVID, although things do look a bit better for those who've been vaccinated, like me, fortunately. But it's more the case of I'm just not used to being around people, and that social anxiety I've had all my life, believe it or not. And people find it hard to believe because I can wear a very good mask, a well-practiced mask. You know, having grown up in a family of extroverts, you learn to fit in, and I had to learn to fit in quite quickly in life. I can put on, you know, being socially outward going and so on, but I'm not really. And being around crowds and such like is very, very crowds. There's no chance of me going anywhere where there's going to be crowds of people. I've said that. But we were saying about food anyway, having something to eat out, or, you know, they said take a picnic and, you know, flask of drink, and if nothing else, if the weather turns bad, we can always sit with our windows open and talk from one car to another rather than sitting outside. And I said, yep, this sounds good. You know, I have a hankering to perhaps go by the sea. And I said, you know, rather than, when we're talking about cake and things, I said, actually, I find cake a bit too sweet now. Ice cream is, you know, acceptable, but not every brand, because some are, you know, sickly sweet, and I can't cope with that. And we're talking about things like scones. Scones are nice, but I really don't want all the sweets. Jam, or jelly as Americans call it, with it. Just plain scones, or fruit scones are my favourite, but, you know, plain scones are fine, cheese scones are great. And I said, well, actually, what I'd really love is a trip to the sea and sit with a bag of chips looking at the sea, and perhaps a walk along the sand, or even a paddle in the sea, you know, and get my feet wet, because it's been so long since I've been there. It's been the last time was actually with Liz, and it was February, just before COVID all kicked off, so it's over a year and a half ago. And I'd just bought my lovely new DSLR, which has been barely used in a year since then. So we went out for me to play with my camera and to have a walk along the beach and have some, you know, lunch and stuff and catch up. And so we've decided this would be nice. She went, oh God, chips by the sea sounds divine. Oh my God, you've hit the nail on the head. So, and tomorrow the weather doesn't look to be, well, it's a bit cloudy over still here, even though the sun's shining through. So tomorrow the weather is likely to be a bit more overcast, which suits me and my weird skin completely. And when it's not so bright and sunny, crowds of people won't be out, because if we're going to have chips by the sea, we're going to have to go into a town where there is a chip shop to get chips, into, you know, a seaside town. And she's fab. They said, you know, let's not go too far in case you can't cope with, you know, being out and about. And I thought, thank you very much. So, but we shall see what happens, because that was the plan a couple of days ago, but things do change, and we never set anything in stone, because things do crop up, and unexpected things happen, and that's all fine and well and good, to be honest. So it's one of my little steps back out into the world. And of course, when I'm with somebody, when I have company, I can be much braver than me on my own. This is working out much nicer, and the motifs are big and bold, and I'll bravely show you what I'd done. it was this, and I really don't know what I was going with it. I think I had in my mind that I wanted to leave the stems bare and create space for other things between them, but I've started adding leaves and it just didn't feel right. So one of my rare ones that I put to one side, and that won't be worked on at all. This one is working out much nicer. Part of me thinks I could have put that more central, but really it doesn't matter too much. And which way is up, which way's down, which way, who knows? There's going to be no sense of direction to this, really. So yeah. Okay, let's do that's in there, that's in there, that in there. Talking about the sea has made me think of seaweed-like fronds here. I say seaweed-like because I doubt there's a seaweed on Earth that looks like that. But these are so much, I find these so much fun to colour in, because the opportunity in a big motif to change from one colour to another, and to either make these look sunken or bulgy out, glowing, or the areas around them glowing, it just appeals to me. So I know that I'll have some fun colouring this in. And as this is going to be the colour palette challenge for the month of July, because I didn't really set one for June. I did, but it was for Brett's birthday, so it was all pinks and purples for her. But I think this does need something like that there. I'll tell you what I might do as well. I may go and darken the bottom here to give them that feeling of either we're looking in a hole, or actually these are sticking up a bit. Whichever you prefer, really. I could do it with all the others, but it gets a bit complicated, but these are fun to do things like this with. And with these, they also start to define different areas of space here as well. We're hitting that border boundary here, which is an Angela favourite thing. I do like a clear border around artwork of mine. So I suppose it's an expression of liminality. Liminality means a border between one thing and another. So there are lots of liminal experiences in life, but I know it more from looking at things to do with prehistory. So, for example, barrow cemeteries from the Bronze Age, which was about 2000 BC to about 500 BC, I think, in Britain. Barrow cemeteries, anyway, are often built in liminal places, which are where there's a border between, say, land and water or land and air. So where you can distinctly see that, on a hill, because it looks like the hill, when you're on top of it, it's surrounded by land, but you're also surrounded by air. So there's that kind of liminality, a point of transition, a point of change. And we have liminal experiences in life as well. And it's just a lovely sounding word, if nothing else. So perhaps my borders that I like to put in, these clear, distinct borders around my art, around any drawing I do, is an expression of that liminality. Okay, where are we going to go with this lot now? That'll work nicely, I think. Yep. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cheekily sneak the end of that one in there, because I think it'd be quite nice to have growing in a different way perhaps. Okay. With this one I most probably could sneak in a couple more circles, but then to me that means, oh, they're not the same. So let's keep it like that. So that works nicely, and then I think we'll have one that goes round here perhaps, which will be quite nice again. That, and perhaps just another one growing out like this. I have a sneaky suspicion what I'm going to be doing here in a moment. It's likely to be woven fronds here, which is always good fun. So that I can have some that seem to be going this way as well. I think now I've got comfortable with this that I can judge how long I want those trio of whatever they are there. If you're really clever, you'll be able to follow those down because the ends are there. Down here, I've put them in. Perhaps clever's not the right word, observant would be better. But they are very small. But I know they're there. With artistic license I could have left them out, but I chose not to. So I think now what I'm going to do here is to have some that curl up this way. Just because I can. So that I have no idea how anything is going to grow and develop on the paper when I put pen to paper when I'm drawing like this. But my mind ticks over as I'm working, and I started to see, have the seeds of an idea in my head for what I could do with this space, with these spaces, to add interest and something that's perhaps a bit different, but all with the same motif. Now I've left a big gap there, so this is where I'm going to be a bit crafty. I'm going to throw some pearls, beads, seeds, eggs that float in the sea, you know, frog spawny. I'm not putting the dots in for frog spawn. If you want dots, you can add dots yourself, because nobody says that you have to leave the drawn image, the template drawn as it is. Now that means I could put some in these others, some of these others, just to add some consistency now. There you are, I made a rod for my own back. But I don't have to do them all because some of the gaps are too narrow really. These are just on the limit, I think, of being easily colourable. Is there such a word as colourable? I don't know. Doesn't sound like it is a legitimate word. That's okay. You know what I mean? Then that really is on the limit of colour, of getting a pencil in, I think. So the rest here can just be coloured in. The pen I'm using is Tombow Fudenasuki, the hard nib version. So the nib is flexible. You might have noticed that there are times when I'm creating thicker lines to add that sense of dimension. Once I worked out that's what I wanted to do, I can do that without going back over them. And these are fab for that. And the paper I'm using is marker paper, which is incredibly smooth. And these pens dry quickly on it, so I don't smudge. This paper is designed for markers, for alcohol markers, so it doesn't bleed through, and the colours remain vibrant because it's so white. But it also makes it nice to draw on because the paper is so smooth, it doesn't wreck the nib in the way that more textured papers like the Clairefontaine mixed media paper, which I particularly like, can do. So and I use this paper for sketching on as well at the moment. So all of the sketches I've done for Whimsical Cats have been done on this, either with a drawing pencil or coloured pencils. I have a particular fondness for the Kohinoor Magic Pencil in, I think it's tropical colours. So the colours are so fun, they change as you draw. And because it's a sketch, if the drawing's not perfect, then that's fine, and I go over it and you get an impression of what the design is, because I know that by the time I come to ink it in, I'll finalise that design up. I change things after a sketch and work on it, because I'll get further ideas, or I'll go, right, I know what needs to go there, or I know why that doesn't work, and make those adjustments. So some of the commentary I've had back has been, that's a bit of a weird shape there, can you change it? Or that cat's a bit too big, body's too big. And I've gone, yeah, planning to do it anyway, because I knew that there was, it wasn't right, but the sketch was just, this is the idea I have, not the final version. This is what it's going to be based on. And so that's great. And then occasionally, once I've inked it in, there are things that appear that I don't naturally recognise as something that could look a little bit awkward. I need somebody else's eyes to pick these things out for me and say, Angela, lose those dots, or lose this, lose that. Whereas in my personal work, it's, in some ways, it is trying to learn about these things, but it's also not absolutely crucial that I do. I know, right, okay, I can see. I do want to put those there. That's okay, I'll edit those out, because I've realised I've actually managed to do these in pairs. So by adding these circles down the centre, I'm actually joining these two to make one, as it were. So I now just have to remember that where I've started adding them there, I'll just erase those digitally. And again, because I know that things are going to be scanned in and edited digitally, it means that if I do something like that, I don't fret about it. All I have to fret about is remembering to do it. But as I'll be finishing this up soon enough, then I won't forget, and I'll look at it and go, hang on, that doesn't look right. Okie dokes. I need to do something in these places to join motifs in some way. And as I rather like shells, I'm starting to get a bit of a sea theme going on here. Let's get some cute shells going on, or shell shapes, spirals. Should be fun. A fun way to add some information, add, I suppose, joining or filling motifs. I'm going to leave white space, so I'm not going to try and fill every available space in, but there's a limit to how much space I do want to leave. I'm comfortable with leaving. I'm learning a bit better about such things, it has to be said. And then I can have another one here. That's nice. So there's a bit of interest and variety here as well. I know that I find it quite daunting if I've got a large area that needs colouring in. My temptation is to go to my library of digital backgrounds and throw a digital background behind the drawing and let that come through the areas in these little sections, so there's a consistency across the whole design. But if I've got arches and things and I have a smaller area to colour in, then I will use artwork and so on. That's quite a contrast, that side. It's quite dark that side and quite light and airy the other. But I do want to add just some, okay, let's go that way round with a shell here, because I do need some of these over here to tie everything in, I think. And besides that, who doesn't like colouring in spiral shells? Yet somebody's going to tell me I don't like them. Well, I like drawing them. Makes my hands and eyes happy, my arty heart quite happy. And because I've got some seeds to join, bits on the opposite side, we'll have some in here as well, I think. Because I can. And it may be that with this one, with all of these items going up to the edge, that I may not draw that hard border in, but these elements will give that image, that illusion of there being a border, which will work for me. Okie dokes. Okay, getting on with this. Right, so what do I want to do over here? Don't know. Just looking and thinking. And I think we're going to have some I was thinking about adding fungi, because I do have a thing for mushrooms and toadstools and designs, but I'm not entirely sure. But these are close enough that if you wanted to turn them into mushrooms, weird ones albeit, baby mushrooms, ones that haven't opened yet, then you could, I suppose. And I've got these stems going behind, and just to add that layer, I suppose, of complexity. And yeah, I'm putting stripes on these because who doesn't like a stripy, mushroomy type thing? Yes, I know. Someone's going to say I don't like them. Fine, that's not a problem. But they're in my drawing today. Because again, these are things that make my little arty heart very happy, I suppose. And they are. They are quite fun to draw. This kind of leaf shape is so flexible. What do you call it when something is able to be used for so many different things? I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but it can be turned into so many different types of things, from leaves to flower buds to all sorts of things. It's one of the basic shapes. It's a teardrop shape or leaf shape, isn't it? It depends how you look at it. And they are. It is one of my favourite kinds of shapes and motifs. There we are, touch the edge there. So that will become an actual bordery place. So let's have a look. I just juddered my paper then, so I've got a bit of an even line, but you know, it is what it is, and we'll make it work. That's a very stunted one. It may be that when I ink this in, or not when I ink it in, when I redraw this, not redraw it, I'm not redrawing it, when I edit it, I'll do something about that one, and perhaps even this one actually, because looking at it, I know I'll change this one by doing that. I can still alter that one, perhaps. Yeah, I think that one does need, that little one does need altering. So I'm trying to leave enough airspace around them that they don't totally bump into each other, so that they're quite distinct, or hide behind each other and it becomes a right mess. But that one really, that little one up there really doesn't look right. But that's easy to solve because I just need to shorten the stem and make, that's easy. It's an easy fix, put it that way. And it's like this one will be fine here as well. So there we go. So that just adds that bit of interest here. Now then, how am I going to complete this? I think it's going to be some more of these along the way growing out. I quite like these because they could be anything. They could be weird flowers, weird seed heads, weird coral, weird seaweedy stuff, weird fungi, lichen, not lichen so much, perhaps some mosses or liverworts. I don't know the seed heads from them. Could be anything you like. And the lovely thing when you don't know what something is supposed to be, it can be any colour you want it to be as well. So the hardest job I'm going to have to do is to come up with a, oh gosh, I've gone and smudged it. That's okay. It says me dries quickly, obviously, and doesn't. Well, not as quickly as it takes me to move my hand on it. So the hardest job I'm going to have really is to work out what colour palette there is for this. And that colour palette could suggest what kind of environment this is. And yes, these always have 5 blobs joined together. Pentablobs. But these haven't reached up really to the top there yet. This one has, but the others haven't, so this one will find its way to the corner, like that. And then perhaps we'll have some baby ones. Perhaps only have 3 blobby bits. That would work. That'll disguise some of those blobs. The rest I can edit digitally. Oh, that one's just gone out the line. That's okay, it can escape. I'm going to allow that one escapage. Go. And then I need to turn this because I'm going to need to do the same kind of thing over here where I need to somehow make these look like it's not just separate, that they are growing in separate places, but they do intermingle. Well, have you seen photographs of the trees with, I think it's called canopy shyness, where the tops of trees come together, a canopy of trees, but you can see there's space between the leaves from trees that are side by side, so you get this gap between them. So those are trees. If I was a tree, I'd be like that. That's social distancing anxiety stuff. You know, I was made for social distancing, being quite introverted and having social anxiety. So problem is when it's allowed almost, where you realise this is how you're, like, you know, more comfortable like this, having to go back into the world, and where perhaps things aren't quite that way and have to interact. That's where all the troubles start, I suppose, again. But time will tell. So I'm getting down to the last little bit here, so I may actually finish this within an hour. And it is, it's going to take me a while to edit because I am being a bit clumsy with my pen work. It doesn't bode well for artwork today in general, but who knows. There's somebody doing do-it-yourself or building work going on outside, so it's going to be a noisy day around here, which is fine. I'm aware. See, I thought I'd add some more of these ones from the central bit, and I'm beginning to wonder if these are gravity defying plants. be alien plants in a world far, far away. Who knows? I don't. So what colour palette will I come up with for this? Will it have a watery feel to it? Will it be something that might suggest an alien kind of environment, different planet, otherworldly? Or will I come up with something else? Or would people like to make suggestions? I don't know. Be something for another time to allow us to get people to make suggestions for the colour palettes. Because I seem to be, doing the drawing a day before and videoing it and then making a video of adding colour. This does seem to be a kind of theme for me. So it would be nice to get you lovely people out there to perhaps share in this experience or to see what happens. I'll have to think on that, how I'm going to approach that. Maybe that we have a list of suggestions and they're put in a hat or numbered, and I use a random number generator to pick one. So that's really only the fair way. 24 hours to make a suggestion of colour palettes. And of course there are so many colour palettes available readily made from places like Design Seeds and so on, that publish to social media. Pinterest has got a huge number of them on there, that it would be quite fun for people to go and look for some that perhaps they think would go with this. So perhaps I'll do that. I don't know. So I need to think on that one. I do like those. I do have to say I do like these, but I'm going to have so much cleanup to do. Let's get some of these in as well. Because these particular motifs here, I'm not drawing it deliberately big to get this finished ahead of time, because some of these were quite big, so I feel quite comfortable in adding perhaps one really quite big one here and a couple of smaller ones. So I've got a fair number of motifs in this drawing. So I could ostensibly add some more, but I'd like to keep it fairly coherent, I think is the word. Oh, this is going to be a cheeky one. Hiding behind the others. But that works as well. You can see, I don't know if you noticed, but I've just changed the position of where I'm holding the pen. And those lines were naturally thicker because of how I've used the pen and how it's become more flexible in some areas compared to others. Yep, that one went outside my boundary line, but that's okay because it will work fine. Pop that one there and see where its stem goes there. These ones, the stems are hidden, I think. So if I start putting too many stems down, then the background gets too complicated. So It could be hidden behind this one could be hidden over here behind the leaf, and so on. It works. And do I want to put any more of these in? Let's have a big overview of this. Yeah, I do want to have some more of these, I think. But how am I going to get these in here? How about if I use the same trick I used where I started off, where I drew that ring from where that very first motif nearly an hour ago appeared from, these ones that I've repeated here, and use that as my little anchor for these lovely seaweedy, frondy things. Now, do I make them the same as I did the ones up there, or shall I leave them all as individual? Do I put the seeds between them? I'm not entirely sure, because though they don't have to be identical, but I think that some yeah, I think I'll need to do these, otherwise it won't. I think the design might feel a little bit lopsided. It's going to anyway, because I'm only going to have 2 areas of these, perhaps, but I may sort that one, because my head's ticking around how I could possibly solve that. I think I know how. Oh, now then, that's going to be an interesting one. There we go. Very interesting. And yeah, I am going to pop these in, because I can on these ones, because they're that little bit bigger. And here, that overspill of line, that's where the first orby thing is going to go in. And that will just hide that crime, so to speak. Not it's a crime really, but one less piece of digital correction I might need to do. You know, I will spend some time now while this rather long video will be processing and uploading, because I am going to leave it full length, and I will do a time lapse, and we'll see which is more popular, people watching. In fact, it'd be rather helpful in the comments if you say whether you prefer a time lapse or whether you prefer to listen to me witter. Part of me thinks that it could be interesting for people to listen to my thought process as I work. Part of me thinks, oh, really? You really think people want to listen to that, Angela? Well, the answer is I don't know. But you get to know a little bit more about me, both as a person and an artist, I suppose. So, and the thoughts that go on as I create art. Because I say I don't actually consciously know what I'm going to do, and to a degree that is true. But listening to myself talk out loud, there are thought processes that are taking place here that I'm just not aware of at the time. I'm just not conscious of those thoughts. So it's intriguing to me to talk about things. I think I said this, was it yesterday's video? Not in the video, it was in my blog even, that it's really good for me to talk out loud as I create, because it's showing me that there is a thought process going on, but it may not be a verbal process, so I may not be aware of what is happening inside my brain, in my mind, as I draw, create. There are two types of inner monologue, and it's only been fairly recently discovered that there are two types. One type is where you have you think in sentences. You're in a monologue, that's the voice in your head when you're thinking. You're aware of it, you're aware of the sentences, you think as if you're speaking. But the other way is where people don't have that inner monologue. That's a very tiny one here. And it's not until they're forced to express their thoughts verbally that they are necessarily aware of their thoughts, which are in abstract, non-verbal forms. And for me, that seems to be a case a lot of the time. And it's very difficult for people who've got different thinking styles or in a monologue styles to understand that this is what happens with people. And with me, I've never ever been aware of consciously thinking about something. So for example, when I was in university or studying A-level sciences, people would say, we've been thinking about this, and is this, that, the other, or whatever. But I didn't sit and think long and hard about things or cogitate on things and work through things. I just knew, I just understood, and I just knew things. And if somebody said, well, what, how do you just know it? I just do. I just get it. But without understanding how I just got it, because I didn't have that inner monologue going of working my way through something and so on. Writing essays would be right, I've got to answer it. Well, right, let's just do that. And there wouldn't be a thought. I think the thoughts would spill out on the paper, but I couldn't sit and think about it beforehand because nothing would come. The information would be there, but I couldn't plan it in that kind of way. Same with when I was learning computer programming. It was a very interesting, because I could never do a flowchart first for the program. I'd have to do the program and then do the flowchart, which is completely backwards, but I could just do the programming. And I didn't know why this was the case. And yet this fairly recently discovered idea of two styles of inner monologue and ways of thinking about things and working things out, suddenly that all makes sense for me anyway. And it's having to verbalise what is going on in my head is actually giving me a really good insight into how I create. Because I say I'm very intuitive in what I do, and I am, but there also is some thought process going on here. It's not entirely mindless. And I think that's why the description of words, artwork as doodle art, confuses me so much. Because I've got my Doodle Worlds book. There's not books yet, there may be. And the characters are commonly described, the style of characters, style of art is commonly described as doodle art. And so I'll happily go along with that. Because, okay, there's that, but I think I'm showing here that although I may think, or it may come across that I am aimlessly doodling at times, I'm not, and yet I don't really sit down with any preconceived ideas of what artwork I want to create. I may have a theme in mind, or I might have a motif in mind I'd like to use as central to the work, but it doesn't necessarily mean that is what I'm going to go with. Okie dokes, I now have to just finish this last section up. I'm just filling in some spaces with shells and pearls. See, I'm talking about this as if it is a marine themed template, aren't I? Except you get shells on land from snails. So I don't have any seashells here, do I? So what is it? Is it land, sea, alien? Just plain weird? A collection of interesting items? That intrigues me in some ways. I came across, I may have heard of them, but it was when I can't remember what I was looking into. But I came across things called cabinets of curiosity, a cabinet of curiosity, which are all kinds of collections put together in one place by someone that reflects, I suppose, their journeys or their interests, and are sort of like put together in a way that makes sense to them. It may not be a scientific classification system, but it's a system that made sense to them based on how they collected them and their experiences and so on. One place I've not been to that I do want to go to is the Pitt Rivers Museum in Oxford, and that's where Pitt Rivers, is it General Pitt Rivers, somebody like that, I can't remember, was an explorer, obviously, in the army, and collected all kinds of things from his travels around the world, including shrunken heads and other things. But this museum of his is all of these things that he collected, that he organised in a way that made sense to him, which isn't a scientific kind of collection. And that intrigues me to go and see that, because I think I'm so used to things being catalogued scientifically. Looking at something that is a very personal way of putting things together, because it talks about that person. And this could be almost like that. It could almost be a cabinet of curiosities, except not a cabinet, but a piece of paper that is acting as a cabinet, where I've gathered together things that are of interest to me and that intrigue me today, that, you know, it's what I want to put together in my own little way. And is that a bad thing? Most probably not, no. It's fun. But I do have a couple of books in my collection now that are illustrations of cabinets of curiosities from people. But what's intriguing as well is the illustrations that are in them, because they go back a long time, and the style of illustration and drawing has changed. And that's of interest to me as well, is to see how people portrayed these things. So this could just be one section out of my cabinet, my own personal inner cabinet of curiosities. Shapes and forms that I find intriguing. It's an expression of what makes me artistically happy. Certainly my hand is enjoying drawing these items, and just a couple more of these in, because I've got gaps in places around the edge, and I want some gaps but not too many of them, so I'm nearly done. So as I'm nearly done, you stuck with me for the hour and 10 minutes or so. I'd like to say thank you, and you deserve a medal for sticking with this. If you get this far, thank you, but please consider liking and subscribing. And if you've got any ideas for what colour palette you think this should be done in, or which way up this goes, I really don't know where I'm going to. It really doesn't matter what way would you like to do it. How am I going to turn this into a template you can print? But I've done it. There we are. Hour and 11 minutes and 28 seconds and it's done, or 20 seconds and it's done. Nearly done. Just can't resist sneaking in one more shell. There we go. Oh, and perhaps another one here. Because I can. Yeah, that's better. Those gaps just stood out as I was standing back, sitting back. And look, there's another one here, which is just perfect for a lovely shell. That's a pretty good shell as well. So there we go. Put it that way. It's complete. And I'm quite happy with that. It's going to be fun to do. How do you approach colouring it? Well, it's entirely up to you. You could use the same colours for the same motifs, or same colour schemes for the same motifs. You could choose to go randomly across the colour palettes, though I will make a suggestion. But as I've said, if you've got any suggestions, leave a comment. And I'll just say thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care now. Bye-bye.